3 creepy true supermarket horror stories. Story 1, The Closing Shift. My name is Darnell, and I was 23 years old when this happened. I was working the closing shift at a supermarket in Columbus, Ohio, one of those big chain grocery stores that stayed open until midnight. It was a Tuesday night in early November, around 11:45 p.m., and I was making my final sweep of the aisles to make sure all the customers had left before we locked the doors. The store was supposed to be empty. Every register had been closed, every announcement had been made, every customer had been checked out. But when I turned down aisle 14, the one with cleaning supplies and paper products, I saw someone standing at the far end. A man in a dark jacket, completely motionless, facing away from me. Before I continue, hit that subscribe button and leave a comment telling me where you are listening from tonight. Because what happened in the next hour is something I will never forget. I had been working at that supermarket for about 8 months. It was called Fresh Mart, part of a regional chain that had about 30 locations across Ohio. The store was in a decent part of town, a suburban shopping center with a pharmacy, a hair salon, and a couple of fast food restaurants. Nothing fancy, but busy enough during the day. Nights were slower, especially toward the end of the shift. By 11:30, we usually had maybe 5 or 6 customers left in the store, stragglers, picking up last-minute items before closing. My job was stock clerk, which meant I spent most of my shift unloading pallets, stocking shelves, and rotating products. But on closing nights, I also helped with the final walkthrough. That meant going aisle by aisle, checking for any customers who might not have heard the closing announcements, making sure nobody was left behind when we locked up. That Tuesday had been a normal shift until the walkthrough. I started at aisle 1 and worked my way toward the back of the store. Aisles 1 through 13 were all clear, empty, quiet, just the hum of the refrigeration units and the buzz of the fluorescent lights. Then I got to aisle 14. The man was standing at the far end, maybe 60 feet away from me. He was facing the shelves, his back to me, completely still. He was wearing a dark jacket with the hood pulled up, jeans and boots. He was not holding a basket or a cart. He was not reaching for a product. He was just standing there. I called out to him. I said, "Excuse me, sir. The store is closing. You need to head to the front for checkout." He did not move, did not turn around, did not acknowledge me at all. I walked closer, maybe got to within 30 feet. I called out again, louder this time. Still nothing. He stood there like a statue. Something about the situation made me stop. A feeling in my gut, that instinct that tells you when something is wrong. I keyed my radio and called for Marcus, the assistant manager on duty. I told him I had a customer in aisle 14 who was not responding, asked him to come help. While I waited, I kept my eyes on the man. He still had not moved. I could not see his face because of the hood, couldn't tell if he was young or old, couldn't read anything about him. Just a dark shape standing in the fluorescent light. Marcus arrived about a minute later, coming from the opposite end of the aisle. He saw the man and called out to him, same as I had. No response. Marcus looked at me, shrugged, and started walking toward the man. When Marcus got within about 10 feet, the man moved. He turned around slowly, and I got my first look at his face. He was maybe mid-40s, pale skin, dark eyes that seemed to reflect the light in a strange way. He was smiling, but it was not a friendly smile. It was the kind of smile that does not reach the eyes, the kind that makes you feel like prey. He looked at Marcus, then passed him at me. Then he started walking. Not towards the exit, toward the back of the store. Marcus called after him, said the store was closed, said he needed to leave. The man ignored him, walked through the swinging doors that led to the back room, the stock room where we kept inventory and received deliveries. Marcus and I exchanged a look. Customers were definitely not allowed in the back room. We followed him. The back room was large, maybe half the size of the sales floor. Rows of metal shelving stacked with boxes, pallets of merchandise waiting to be stocked, forklifts parked in the corners. The lighting was dimmer back here, industrial fixtures that cast harsh shadows. We did not see him at first. We walked between the rows of shelving, calling out, telling him he needed to leave immediately. Nothing. Silence. Then we heard a sound, a metallic scraping coming from somewhere near the loading dock. We headed in that direction. The loading dock was at the back of the building, a raised platform with two large bay doors that were used for deliveries. The doors were supposed to be closed and locked at night. One of them was open about 3 feet, letting in cold November air. The man was standing on the loading dock, facing the open door, that same smile on his face. He turned to look at us. He said in a voice that was calm and flat that he had been watching this store for weeks. He said he knew the routines, the schedules, when certain employees worked. He said he knew I always did the closing walkthrough alone. He said tonight was supposed to be different. Marcus grabbed his radio and called for security. But our security guard, an older man named Walter, was stationed at the front of the store, at least a 2-minute walk away. The man reached into his jacket pocket. I tensed, expecting a weapon. Instead, he pulled out a folded piece of paper. He unfolded it and held it up so we could see. It was a photograph of me taken in the parking lot outside the store. I was walking to my car after a shift, maybe 2 weeks earlier, based on the jacket I was wearing. I had not known anyone was watching me. I had not seen anyone with a camera. He said he had been patient. He said he had learned everything he needed to know. He said he was ready. I did not wait to find out what he was ready for. I grabbed a pallet jack that was sitting nearby, a heavy metal tool on wheels that were used to move pallets around. I swung it toward him, not trying to hit him, just trying to create distance. He stepped back, surprised by the sudden movement. His foot caught the edge of the loading dock, and he stumbled backward out the open bay door, falling the 4 feet to the concrete below. Marcus was already running for the front of the store, yelling for Walter. I slammed my hand on the button that lowered the bay door, watching it descend, blocking the opening. By the time the police arrived, maybe 10 minutes later, the man was gone. He had picked himself up and disappeared into the darkness behind the shopping center. They searched the area, the parking lots, the nearby streets. Nothing. But they found his car. It was parked at the far end of our lot, in a section that was not covered by our security cameras. Inside the car, they found more photographs. Dozens of them. Pictures of employees, including me, taken over a period of several weeks. Pictures of the store from different angles. Pictures of the loading dock, the back entrance, the employee break area. And there was a notebook. Pages of handwritten notes about schedules, about routines, about which employees worked, which shifts. My name appeared multiple times. So did the names of 3 other employees, all of them young women who worked evening shifts. The police said he had been planning something. They did not say exactly what, because they did not know. But based on the photographs, the notes, the way he had talked about being ready, they believed he had been building toward an abduction, or worse. They never caught him. The photographs in his car were not clear enough to identify him. The car itself had been stolen 3 weeks earlier from a lot in Cincinnati. He had been careful, he had planned, and when things went wrong, he had escaped. I quit that job 2 days later. I could not walk those aisles anymore, could not do the closing walkthrough, could not be in that building after dark without feeling watched. For months, I would look over my shoulder in parking lots, scan crowds for a face I would recognize, lie awake at night, wondering if he'd found someone else, or if he was still out there waiting for another chance at me. The police told me to be vigilant, to vary my routines, to let people know where I was at all times. I do all of those things now, years later. I check my surroundings. I park under lights. I never assume I am alone, because I know now that the most ordinary places can hide the most dangerous people. And I know that somewhere out there, a man with a notebook full of schedules and a folder full of photographs is still watching someone, still planning, still waiting to be ready. Story 2. The Night Shopper. My name is Brandon, and I was 27 years old when this happened. I was a night owl by nature, and I preferred to do my grocery shopping late when the stores were empty and I could move through the aisles without dealing with crowds. It was a Saturday night in late September, around 11:20 p.m., and I was at a 24-hour supermarket in suburban Denver, Colorado. The store was nearly deserted, maybe 3 or 4 other customers scattered throughout the building. I was in the cereal aisle when I first noticed the woman watching me from the end of the row. She was standing completely still, a shopping cart in front of her, staring directly at me with an intensity that made the hair on my arms stand up. If you enjoy these stories, hit subscribe and drop a comment below, because what happened over the next 30 minutes is something I still cannot explain. I had been shopping at this particular supermarket for about 2 years, ever since I moved to Denver for work. It was a large store, one of those warehouse-style places, with high ceilings and wide aisles. During the day it was packed, but late at night, especially after 11, it transformed into something almost peaceful. Just me and the quiet hum of the building filling my cart, without having to navigate around crowds or wait in long checkout lines. That Saturday I arrived around 11 and grabbed a cart. I had a list on my phone, about 15 items. I figured I would be in and out in 20 minutes. I started in the produce section, grabbed some apples and bananas, then moved to the bread aisle. Everything was normal. A couple of other shoppers passed me, going the opposite direction. The usual late-night crowd of people who worked odd hours, or just preferred the quiet. It was in the cereal aisle that I first saw her. She was standing at the far end of the row, maybe 50 feet away. Average height, maybe late 30s, wearing a long coat, even though it was not particularly cold. Her shopping cart was in front of her, but it looked empty. She was not looking at products. She was looking at me. I made eye contact for a second, then looked away. People look at each other in stores. It happens. I grabbed a box of cereal and moved on. In the dairy section, I noticed her again. She was at the end of the aisle, same possession cart in front of her, staring. She had followed me, or at least she had ended up in the same place I was going. I told myself it was a coincidence. The store was small enough that you ran into the same people multiple times during a shopping trip. I grabbed my milk and eggs and moved to the frozen food section. She was there too. Different angle this time, standing near the frozen pizzas while I was looking at ice cream. Her cart was still empty. She had not put a single item in it, and she was still staring at me. My heart started beating a little faster. 3 times in a row was not a coincidence. She was following me. I decided to test my theory. Instead of going to my next item on the list, I walked to the far corner of the store, the section with pet supplies. I did not have a pet. There was no reason for me to be there. I walked slowly, browsing the dog food, like I was actually interested. About 30 seconds later, she appeared at the end of the aisle. Same posture, same empty cart, same stare. I pulled out my phone and pretended to take a call. I spoke loudly enough that she could hear, said something about meeting my friend in 15 minutes, about him picking me up outside the store. None of it was true, but I wanted her to think I was not alone, that someone was waiting for me. She did not leave. She did not even look away. She just stood there, watching. I abandoned my shopping, left my cart where it was, and walked toward the front of the store. I needed to find an employee, a manager, someone in authority. The store was so empty, I had not seen a single worker since I arrived. I found a teenage kid restocking shelves near the checkout lanes. I told him there was a woman following me through the store, that she'd been trailing me for the past 10 minutes, that I needed to speak to a manager. He looked at me like I was crazy, but said he would find someone. While I waited, I looked around the store. I could not see her. She had not followed me to the front. Maybe she had left. Maybe my phone call trick had worked. The manager arrived, a tired-looking man in his 50s. He asked me to describe the woman and point out where I had last seen her. I described her as best I could and said she'd been in the pet supply section. He walked back there with me. The aisle was empty. No woman, no cart. We checked the nearby aisles. Nothing. The manager said maybe she'd left the store. He offered to have security walk me to my car. I accepted. The security guard was a young guy, maybe 22, who looked like he would rather be anywhere else. We walked out through the main entrance into the parking lot. It was well lit near the store, but the far reaches of the lot faded into darkness. My car was parked about 100 yards out toward the edge of the lot. I had parked there out of habit, leaving the close spots for people who wanted them. Now, I regretted that choice. We were about halfway to my car when I saw it. A figure standing next to my vehicle. Even from a distance, I could see it was her. The same long coat, the same posture. She was standing next to my driver's side door, waiting. I stopped walking. The security guard stopped too. He asked me if that was her. I said yes. He pulled out his radio and called for backup. Then he started walking toward her, telling me to stay back. As he got closer, she moved. Not toward him, not away. She walked around. My car opened the passenger door of a vehicle parked next to mine and got in. I had not even noticed the other car. It was dark, no lights on, just a shape in the shadows. The car started and pulled away, driving slowly past us. As it passed, I could see her face through the window, illuminated by the parking lot lights. She was smiling. The security guard got the license plate and called it in. I gave a statement to the police when they arrived. They ran the plates and came back with information that made my blood run cold. The car was registered to a woman who had died 3 years earlier. The plates should not have been on the road. Someone had kept them, kept the registration kept, driving a dead woman's car. The police found the vehicle abandoned 2 days later, about 10 miles from the supermarket. It had been wiped clean. No fingerprints, no DNA, no evidence of who had been driving it, or who the woman following me had been. I never found out who she was or what she wanted. The police had no leads. There were no security cameras covering the section of the lot where she had waited by my car, so there was no footage of her face. But here is what keeps me up at night. She knew which car was mine. In a parking lot with hundreds of vehicles, she walked directly to my car and waited. That means she had seen me arrive. She had watched me park. She had followed me into the store and then followed me through the aisles. And when she realized I was getting help, when she saw me with the security guard, she did not panic. She did not run. She walked calmly to her car and drove away, smiling like she had gotten exactly what she wanted. I do not know what that was. I do not know if she was planning to confront me at my car to follow me home or something worse. I do not know if she targeted me specifically or if I was just the random victim of someone with bad intentions. What I do know is that I never shop late at night anymore. I never park far from the entrance. And every time I walk to my car in a parking lot, I scan the area around my vehicle first, looking for figures standing in the shadows, looking for someone who might be waiting. Because she is still out there somewhere. And I have no way of knowing if she has forgotten about me, or if she is still watching, still following, still waiting for another chance. Story 3. The Storage Room. My name is Calvin, and I was 31 years old when this happened. I was the overnight inventory manager at a large supermarket in Jacksonville, Florida, responsible for overseeing the team that stocked shelves and organized the back room between midnight and 8 a.m. It was a Wednesday night around 3:15 in the morning when one of my stockers told me he had heard strange noises coming from the storage area behind the loading dock. I grabbed my flashlight and went to investigate, expecting to find a rat or maybe a raccoon that had gotten in through a gap in the wall. What I found instead was something much worse. Make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell, because this story still gives me nightmares. The supermarket was one of the biggest in the region, a massive building that covered almost 2 acres. The sales floor was what customers saw bright and organized, with its neat rows of products. But behind the scenes, there was a whole other world. The back room was a labyrinth of storage areas, walk-in coolers, freezers, load-in docks, and maintenance corridors. During the day, it was constantly busy with deliveries and restocking. At night, when the store was closed to customers, it became a different place entirely. Quieter, darker in some sections, full of shadows and sounds that could be anything. I had been working overnights at this store for about 3 years. I knew every inch of the back room, every corridor, every storage area. I was comfortable there in a way that most people would not be. The darkness did not bother me. The sounds did not bother me. I had heard it all before. That Wednesday started like any other overnight shift. We had a truck delivery at 1 a.m. that took about 2 hours to unload. After that, the team spread out across the store to stock shelves while I handled inventory counts and paperwork in the back office. Around 3:15, one of my stockers, a young guy named Derek, came to find me. He looked nervous, which was unusual for him. He was usually one of the more reliable members of the crew, not easily rattled. He said he had been getting pallets from Storage Area C, a section at the far back of the building near the loading dock, when he heard something. Not the usual sounds of the building settling or the refrigeration unit cycling. Something else. Movement. Footsteps. Maybe a voice, though he was not sure about that part. I told him it was probably nothing. Maybe a raccoon or a stray cat that had gotten in. We had dealt with that before. He said he did not think so. He said it sounded too heavy to be an animal. I grabbed my flashlight and told him to show me where. We walked through the back room, past the rows of shelving, past the walk-in coolers to the entrance of Storage Area C. Storage Area C was a large space, maybe 40 feet by 60 feet, used for overflow inventory and seasonal items. It was not used as frequently as the other storage areas, and the lighting back there was not great. A few overhead fixtures that cast pools of light with darkness in between. I turned on my flashlight and swept the beam across the room. Rows of shelving stacked with boxes, pallets of merchandise wrapped in plastic. Nothing out of place. I called out, asked if anyone was there. No response. Derek stayed at the entrance while I walked into the storage area. I moved between the rows of shelving, checking each aisle, looking for anything unusual. The beam of my flashlight illuminated dusty boxes and forgotten inventory. Nothing suspicious. I was about to tell Derek he had imagined it when I heard it too. A sound from somewhere deeper in the storage area. Not footsteps exactly. More like something shifting, something heavy being moved. I stopped and listened. Silence. Then the sound again, coming from the far corner of the room, near a section of shelving that held old holiday displays and seasonal merchandise. I walked toward it, flashlight raised. As I got closer, I could see that one of the shelving units had been moved. There was a gap behind it that I had never noticed before, a space between the shelving and the wall, big enough for a person to fit through. I shined my flashlight into the gap. It was not just a gap. It was an opening to another space, a section of the building I did not know existed. Old construction maybe, from before the store was renovated. A forgotten room that had been sealed off and hidden behind the shelving. Inside the opening, I could see blankets, food wrappers, water bottles, a small battery-powered lantern. Someone had been living here. I backed away and pulled out my radio. I called for Derek to get the rest of the team to the front of the store immediately. I told him not to ask questions, just do it. Then I called the police. While I waited for the call to connect, I heard movement again. This time, it was clearly footsteps. Someone was in that hidden room, and they were moving toward the opening. I ran. I am not ashamed to admit it. I turned and ran back through Storage Area C, through the back room toward the front of the store, where my team was gathering. The police arrived about 15 minutes later. They went into the back room with flashlights and weapons drawn. I stayed at the front with my team waiting, listening to the sounds of doors opening and voices calling out. They found him. A man, early 50s, who had been living in that hidden space for at least 2 months based on the evidence they found. He had discovered the forgotten room during a delivery, when he'd hidden in the back of a truck to escape the winter cold. He realized that the space was not monitored, not included in any security checks, completely off the radar. So, he had stayed. For 2 months, while we worked our overnight shifts, while we stocked shelves and counted inventory and walked through the back room dozens of times, a man had been living 20 feet away, in a room we did not know existed. But that was not the worst part. The police found other things in his hiding spot. Photographs, hand-drawn maps of the store, notes about employee schedules and routines, information about which workers were usually alone in which parts of the building and at what times. He had been watching us, learning our patterns, and based on what the police found in his notes, he had been planning to act on what he learned. There was a list, 5 names, all of them employees who worked overnight. All of them people who regularly found themselves alone in isolated parts of the building. My name was on that list. So was Derek's. The man was arrested and charged with trespassing, burglary, and several other offenses. During the investigation, the police discovered he had a history, a record from another state, assault charges, a restraining order. Time served for an incident that the police wouldn't give me details about. He had been building towards something in our store. The police believed he was days, maybe hours, away from acting. If Derek had not heard those sounds, if I had not investigated, if the police had not found him when they did, one of us might have become a victim. The store conducted a full inspection after that. They found 3 other spaces in the building that were not properly monitored, gaps in the security coverage that could have allowed someone to hide. All of them were sealed. New cameras were installed. New protocols were implemented. But I could not shake the feeling. For 2 months I had walked past that storage area dozens of times. I had been within 20 feet of a man who was watching me, studying me, putting my name on a list. And I had no idea. I quit that job 3 months later. I could not be in that building anymore, especially at night, especially in the back room. Every shadow felt like a threat. Every sound made me jump. I was not the same person I had been before, and I knew I never would be again. I work a desk job now, 9 to 5, surrounded by co-workers in a well-lit office. No back rooms, no storage areas, no forgotten spaces where someone might be hiding. But sometimes, when I am alone in a building, I find myself looking at the walls, wondering what might be behind them, wondering if there are spaces that nobody knows, about rooms that do not appear on any blueprint hiding places where someone could watch and wait. Because I know now that the most dangerous places are not the ones that look dangerous. They are the ordinary places, the places we trust, the places where we let our guard down, because we think we know every inch of them. And sometimes, hiding in those ordinary places, there are people who are watching, people who are making lists, people who are waiting for the right moment. The question is whether you will find them before they find you. Those were 3 creepy true supermarket horror stories. Supermarkets are places we visit constantly, often without thinking twice about our safety. We push our carts through the aisles, lost in our shopping lists, barely noticing the people around us. We assume we are safe, because we are in a public place surrounded by lights and security cameras and other shoppers. But as these stories show, that assumption can be dangerous. The closing shift when the store empties out. The late night shopping trip when you are nearly alone. The back rooms and storage areas where employees work in isolation. These are spaces where danger can hide, where predators can watch and wait, where the ordinary facade of a grocery store can conceal something terrifying. Pay attention to your surroundings. Trust your instincts when something feels wrong. And never assume that a familiar place is a safe place. Because the most dangerous predators are the ones who know how to blend in. The ones who look like they belong. The ones who are watching you right now, learning your routines, waiting for the moment when you let your guard down. Stay safe out there.